Welcome everyone to the no, it was Wednesday. He used to be on Wednesday. This is Thursday. This is the Thursday, and Dr. Eddie Capparucci is joining today, and it's great to see you. So, what do you have for us today?
Well, it's wonderful to see you too. And yes, I keep messing up days on you, and I'm sorry about that. So, hey, everyone, it's good to be back. It's been a long time, been a couple months since I've been here. And I've really missed this opportunity. As Tammy said before, if you have questions, please put them into the Q&A, right? And,
Correct.
and we will take them and answer them, hopefully, for you as we move along. So this month, what I want to talk about is regulation, emotional regulation. Now, we talk a lot about emotional regulation when it comes to the betrayed partner. And the reason being for that is with betrayal trauma, it can become very, very difficult to emotionally regulate. So that conversation happens quite often, and justified that it should happen. There's a lot of wonderful work being done by groups, including here at Seeking Integrity, helping those who've been betrayed to learn how to emotionally regulate when triggered. Because even though it may feel like you can't regulate at the moment, that is not accurate. You can. It just takes one understanding what are the proper tools, and not every tool works for everyone. That's really important to know. There are many techniques to regulation, but what may work for Tammy may not work for me, and vice versa. So you have to kind of play around with the mix to find out which is the one that will really impact you the most. But today, kind of switching gears, and I'm talking about the regulation for those who have betrayed. Now, you might be wondering, why in the world are you talking about this? Well, the reason I'm talking about this is because those who have been betrayed, I think you're tired of the defensiveness, the gaslighting, the lying, the withdrawing, the wilting. Do I need to go on? I don't think so. Right? You're tired of it. You don't want to you want to see that. You want them just to be there, engaging, connecting, showing that they understand, owning what they've done, being empathetic. They can't do that if they're dysregulated. And they get dysregulated. In fact, they've been getting dysregulated all of their lives and not really knowing or understanding it. See, and that's the part that's the struggle. Because if I don't know I'm dysregulated and I'm acting in a certain way, I'm just going to stay there. I'm not going to be able to say, oh, wait a second. You know what? I am hyper dysregulated or I'm hypo dysregulated. Instead, I'm just going to stay there. As kids growing up, and I started thinking about this with myself too. I got dysregulated so often. And when we think about dysregulated,
Mm.
we can't think about just, oh, somebody gets like, no, dysregulation is also a hypodysregulation. And I did a lot of that when I was younger. Great deal. Withdrawing, isolating, not wanting to be bothered. It's like mini depressions almost that we go through. And so therefore, as I continued to get older as a teenager and someone in my mid 20, early 20s, mid 20s, I so moody. I could flip the switch like that and become more hypo. I rarely got hyper. I didn't get there. I was more down. So I'm withdrawing from you. I'm pulling away from you. Okay. Um, and I did that. I realized I did that a lot. I never realized how much I did it until I started thinking about this myself. And that's what we do, again, because of the emotional neglect that we went through, where we don't have someone who is helping us to work through the mental or the emotional anguish that we're dealing with or discomfort that they were dealing with. So, Tammy, if you could put that graphic up I want to walk you through something here. Um, because basically, okay, so what do we mean when we say hyper-regulated or hypo dysregulated? And here you can see here on the screen. Um, this is about the window of tolerance. You've heard me talk about the window of tolerance. I'm sure you've heard other people do so too. But this also is a diagram setting up for you what does the autonomic nervous system do when it is activating in a healthy way and when it's activating in an unhealthy way. The healthy way is that middle green box. Okay, here I feel calm, peaceful. I'm just, I'm just in a good place. If you were up at the top box, that pinkish box, peach box, there's your hypo aroused. All right. So therefore, you might be feeling fear, worry, anger. You could see many of the terminology is there. And that's where we go. Or we drop down to that bottom blue box, which I said that's where I spent a lot of my time when I was younger, hypo aroused, which means again, feeling numb, feeling sluggish, feeling foggy, not being litless. That's where it is. Well, those who have betrayed, we we play in between these three fields, okay? But we spend a lot more of our time in either that peach or that blue field than we really should the green. And what we need to do is be able to learn to regulate ourselves into the green. And again, you can see what happens when we're not regulated. Okay, hyperarousal. You're going to get somebody who's going to start yelling back at you. They're going to become defensive. All right, they're going to start doing explaining. If they're hypo-aroused, what are they going to do? They're going to withdraw. They're going to wilt. Okay, they're going to probably try to hide. They're going to lie, to try to get away from things that are happening. So you could see that depending on how they are or are not regulated, it's going to really play into how they react when you're trying to heal. I mean, I hope that makes sense. That's what the bottom line is here that I'm talking about. Okay, so with that being said, so what do I do about that? Well, for those who have betrayed, right, we need to make it a habit that what we're going to do is we're going to stay as close to that green box as possible. All right. We can't live in the green box. I wish we could. We can't. But we want to stay there as close as possible. And even if that means 1 foot in the green and one in the blue, one in the green, one in the peach, we want to stay here. And when you start seeing yourself slide into one of these, this is where you got to go to that inner child and say, all right, what's going on? How are you getting triggered? The other thing about this that's so critical is that it is possible. Let's say you were in the heart, you were in the center of the window of tolerance, the green box. It is possible to do just one action, shift, and be in the middle of the hyperarousal or the hypoarousal. It is possible, but that is not the norm. What the norm is we go and step by step by step by step, and we start to either sink into the one bucket or we start to rise into the other bucket. The problem here is that we're not aware of the fact that this is starting to happen. We can be aware of it. We should be aware of it, but we're not. And that's part of what we need to do when we learn how to regulate ourselves. When I start to feel mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, that I am shifting, something changing, something going on. What is that? So that I then can start to say, all right, let me move myself back into the green box so I can stay there versus allowing myself to dribble out into one of the other two boxes. So one of the ways to do this is that what we should do is 3 times a day, we need to spend between 10 and 15 minutes. I don't have that much time. How am I going to find that much time? Come on. Three times a day, 10, 15 minutes a day. Dr. Capparucci, you don't understand. You realize what my schedule's like? I mean, I just have way too many things to do. And I'm not going to let my jersey come out. Um, that's not correct. Okay. That's not correct. You have the time. In fact, and if you don't have the time, you need to make the time. This is critical. This is part of self-care. I believe you know by now that I believe what is the definition of recovery? Self-care. That's my definition of recovery. Self-care. If you know what your mind, your emotions, and your body are telling you, if you're aware of those, you're gonna wind up staying regulated. If you stay regulated, you're going to be able to slow things down. If you slow things down, you're going to be able to avoid engaging in compulsive behaviors and reactions. It's that simple. But you need to do this. You need to find that time. This has to be just like brushing your teeth. And don't tell me you don't brush your teeth every day. I'm going to be really ill. You need to brush your teeth, right? This is the same way. And why do we do that? To make sure that we have a healthy mouth. We have a healthy mouth. Just like if you have hypertension, you probably take a hypertension medication. Why? So you can keep your blood pressure regulated. Hopefully, many of you, you do it on a regular basis and you just do it. That's what this needs to become. This has to become the norm. The norm. So 3 times a day for 15 minutes, we are going to engage in anywhere between 2 or 3 of these regulation techniques. And I come up with a list of about 20 that, and if you want a copy of it, just send me an email at innerchildmodel@gmail.com. innerchildmodel@gmail.com, and I'll be happy to send that to you. So for example, I'm just going to give you a couple of them, all right? Because I want to get to your question. Cold exposure. Go and grab a handful of ice and just hold on to that ice as long as you can, okay? Or fill a basin up with cold water and put ice in it and submerge your face in it for 30 seconds. Okay. So now you're wondering, well, what's that doing? That coldness, the temperature change, what that's doing, that's starting to automatically re-kick in your autonomic nervous system. Okay, you're resetting it to that. So, and that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get you to be alert. We're trying to get you to be aware of things. Another wonderful idea, they're called weighted blankets. Okay, you hear them in many different places. And what they weigh anywhere between 15 to 30 pounds. And what you want to do, you just want to put it over you. And what it does, it just gives this sense of feeling surrounded, of comfort. It's about relaxation. About relaxation. Okay. We go to the idea of what's called the butterfly hug. Okay, we're here. And what I like to do with the butterfly hug is just rock. Just rock. Close your eyes. I'm gonna have to stop in a minute or I'll just stay here forever. It's peace. It's a sense of peace. Classical music. And not just listening to the classical music, but listening and again, awareness. What's the highs? What's the lows? What's the change of an instrument that's happening? being very aware. See, I'm being very alert. And when we become alert that way, again, we're soothing the autonomic nervous system. Stretching. Okay, stretching. I have these like rubber bands that I use, and I put them down on my feet and I sit there and I stretch and I out over, and it's just incredible, especially when you go up. And what you're doing is you're taking the spine and you're expanding it, and therefore allowing the spinal fluid to circulate better within the spine, which again, extremely healthy for you. Tapping. I have a whole thing in here about tapping. You might think, oh, tapping, sounds kind of weird. It works. It works because, but how it works is when you feel the sensation involved in it. You've got to feel the sensation. The other aspect of this, and that's all the ones I'm going to cover for now. The other aspect of this is while you're doing it, breathe. We don't breathe well. I just spent 17 minutes not breathing very well because I just talk. But when I get involved with this stuff, I can't help it. I get very excited. I get very passionate. Look, see, I'm back to doing it again. How to breathe. Fortunately, I'm not like that when I don't present. I'm not like that in my counseling sessions with people. I'm more like that. Nietzsche. Learning to regulate will help you in being able to stay focused and engaged with your partner who needs you. You won't be able to do it if you're not regulated. You can learn to regulate yourself. It takes time, it takes practice. Most importantly, it takes a commitment. And I will say this, you start living in that green box, you're going to be amazed about how much better you feel about yourself and you feel about life, no matter what the circumstances are. And that's what I got for you today, Tammy.
So before I stop sharing this, I thought even the visuals on this, like the poor person drooping, in the
Yeah,
hypoarousal. I thought, wow, that's such a great visual. But even the hyper, it's like, yeah, I'm here to fight. And I was thinking, and how these dysregulated states can interact if we're both hyper aroused, World War III. And if we're both hypo aroused, we probably are so disconnected and nothing's really happening. And it's challenging. Like we've talked before about co-regulation and all of this kind of thing, and how great it would be if we're helping each other be as much in the green, as possible. And you mentioned you realized, in your 20s, that's where you went. I'd be curious if it started even before that, and
Oh,
I
it
don't.
started. It
Oh, you
started when
do.
it started when I was 4 and 5.
Oh, that's what I
It
wondered about.
went.
I
It
thought,
went all.
yeah.
No,
Wow.
it went throughout my elementary school, middle school, high school. Again, I could be yay, and then all of a sudden, boom, down.
So when you were talking, I'm going to stop sharing now, but when you talked about, I don't have time, and I thought, do you have time for World War III? Do you have time to be
Oh,
distant? I mean, it's like, oh my gosh, this is such a good like investment. Like if you look at, I'm investing time in self-care that's going to help me so that I can show up and not cause myself more problems that I'm going to have to spend hours trying to to undo. I love what you're talking about breathing too. Same thing. A, talk fast. B, I shallow breathe. I notice like I have to be intentional to make sure that the air is going, like I have to visualize the air going to the outsides of my lungs, because otherwise
ah,
pull it
yeah.
in. But it's really helpful when I pay attention, when I'm doing my grounding things, to pay attention to, that flow of air, but yeah, I will speak for my, yeah, I'm not, I run and do things which fortunately probably helps, but in my regular breathing, when I'm just sitting at my desk, my go-to is very shallow. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's certain things because we've done them so long and they seem so natural that we have to continue to remind ourselves. And if when we catch ourselves, we're gonna default back to it.
Oh, yeah.
We're gonna default back. And we got to say no. It's just like, if somebody is filled with shame about some of the acts that they've done, even after they processed all of it. I mean, they're gonna, every once in a while, they're gonna be triggered and they're gonna have this sense of remorse. Okay, you just gotta sit, grieve it, and then move back on again. So it's not that's the thing about this. It's not like it's like, oh, okay, you know what? We do our therapy, we go to our group, we do that. We're
I
done.
know. I know. There's
We're
no one and dones with this stuff. So,
No, I
yeah.
mean, you wish it was, you're like, oh, I go to the doctor because I have a wart or something. We move it. Oh, it's done. I'm fitted. It's not. That's not the way it works. Because again, what are we dealing with? We're dealing with trying to maintain the process of overcoming the coping strategies we put in place to protect ourselves back then. And it's so easy to want to fall back into that coping strategy or strategies whenever we start to feel unsafe. It just, again, it's just natural. Let me go there. That's why, again, you sit here and you can talk to, these guys about the idea of, you know what, being defensive, stonewalling, this and that, all of that. And then all of a sudden, they're still doing it. And the reason they're still doing it is because they're not slowing down and being mindful and thinking about how am I going to react next time I get in the trenches with her and she wants to heal and she needs to heal. No, we're not. Because I don't want to think about it. I don't want to go back there. I don't even want to think. I'm just going to ignore it. Maybe it'll never happen again. Oh, there's the kid. There's your inner child playing it out. And that's the other part of it too. We always have to deal with that inner child. Right? It's not that hard to deal with him. Awareness is the word of the day. Even though I talked about regulation, but it's awareness is the word of the day. To be aware, what is your mind, your body, and your soul telling you? Am I drifting one way or another? Because again, before we used to just drift. We can't drift. We have to stop it, come back to the middle, because that's where we have to play.
You talked about having techniques and what works for some. I think it's also important to have techniques. If I'm in the middle of the grocery store, I'm not going to have a bowl of water to stick my face in. So having things that I can use in the moment
Oh,
wherever I am. So having a little, this is my emergency kit. This is what I need to do now, and and even if, well, this usually works, but in this moment, this one isn't working. So I have 6 of them. I'm going to use the others and I'm going to do whatever. And I'm going to be mindful, like the awareness. I'm going to be mindful of, like, I've got a whole bunch. If this one's not working for me, go to the next. So,
that's why I create it with so many. And you're right. You need some that are short term,
mhm,
and you need some that, or okay, I got the time.
mhm, mhm,
Like you're not
mhm.
going to carry a weighted blanket around with
I
you.
know. I love my weighted blanket, by the way.
Oh, you
So,
have one?
yeah,
Okay.
of course I do. Yeah.
So you're not going to carry that around with you.
No.
So therefore, again, that's one that, all right, when I have the time. Same thing with the water. Okay, that's when I have the time. But there are others that are real. I could do it in 5 minutes.
Mhm.
But even then, and most of those are the breathing exercises, which are really important. So,
Yes. Yeah. And I have some that I can do in 2 minutes. Cause, like, if I need to, like, settle right now, like even the stop it for, 30 seconds or a minute, that will shift things enough that I can, and then I can attend to things on a deeper level
yep.
when I have time. So, okay. So, first question, how do I answer the question about why I did what I did, addict partner here. This is a repetitive question that comes up. I've heard it can be grief related, it leads to cyclical conversations, and it's hard to believe that any answer I would give would lead to resolution. I hear you, and I say that to partners all the time. I know saying I am an addict is not sufficient. My partner's understandable response is to believe that it's because she is not enough in some way. I want to give her the answers she wants and have struggled to.
Well, so, the thing about your partner is your partner has to understand it has nothing to do with her. Okay, and you would have done this with anyone, and she needs to realize that that's when she'll heal. She'll heal. Correct me if I'm wrong, Tammy. She'll heal when she starts to feel better about herself and to remove the things she thinks about herself that were the result of his betrayal. Right? That's what we're looking. We're moving a bunch of cats away. How many cats do you got?
Just one really
Oh.
naughty one. Oh my gosh. Why she picks a webinar to decide to be all over my computer. I'm sorry, but
That's all right.
yeah,
I'm cool with it.
yeah.
Um, so I hope that she starts to get through that. The idea that, is there an answer that you can give that will lead to resolution? No, there's not. Because no matter whatever, and there is a why. And the why is found through the inner child model. If you do the inner child work, you will answer the why question. Why did I think, act, and feel the way I did? That's what we come up with. That's part of it. Because by knowing that, that's going to help you in not going back there again. But giving her that answer, that's not going to resolve the issue. Okay? It might get her away from the thinking of she's somewhat responsible, which I hope it does, but that's not what it is. Because just answering why doesn't alleviate the issue. You then have to put into place the work that goes with the why. But it makes it so much easier because now, as you get an urge, a temptation, instead of just running off, again, in a compulsive manner, again, we slow everything down. And then it's like, oh, I know why I want to go there because I'm seeking affirmation. I want attention. You know what? I'm feeling disrespected. And I don't want to feel this. I don't want to feel it. I want to ignore it, whatever it is. And that's why you run. So again, we start a class in early September, I believe it is. Tammy,
I will put the link on our, on the chat for everyone. But on Seeking Integrity, you can always find all of the work groups, and that includes Why Men Struggle to Love and Going Deeper. So I would invite you to check those out. The schedule for each of them will be on there.
I got it. September 8th, Monday, September 8th, we start Going Deeper. The workshop is 12 weeks long. We walk you through the whole
It's
model.
fantastic.
And when you
Yes.
get done with it, you will know why. And more importantly, you're going to know how to be able to manage your addiction. So,
And the only thing, two things. First of all, I've been in recovery for decades, and I keep peeling back more and go, oh, that's part of the why. And it doesn't matter. I mean, like it's interesting and it's helpful, but it didn't keep me from being in recovery. I say to partners all the time, because they're like, why? And it's always like, I want to make sure that he isn't going to do that again, and B, what's wrong with me. So I get that, but I always say there is never going to be a good enough why, because your brain would never do this. You would never consider doing these things. So the why is going to go like, really, that's your reason, that's your excuse. It's got nothing to do with partners, just like Dr. Eddie was saying. It's got nothing to do with the partners. And no matter what why you give, it won't be enough, and it'll just keep leaving that. So I say all the time, the questions that are more useful is, what do I need to do today to be on a recovery path, and how do we move forward? Those are far more helpful for each and both of you than just digging for the why. Because here's the other thing. Lots of people know parts of the why or the why, and they still act out. So focusing on that, like I said, I love it. I love understanding when my inner child is showing up. I love it when I know what wounded part is showing up so that I can attend to it. but but right now focusing on how do we move forward, what do we need to do. I hope your partner is getting the help. There's a great book for inner children of partners that Dr. Eddie and his wife Terry wrote. If your partner is open to that, I'm not saying you should hand her the book, but but if she's watching this, I hope I hope she gravitates towards that. This is about support and healing. This is not, there's something wrong with you and therefore you need to, but with betrayed partners, nothing you did or didn't do caused this, so it's not about you. It feels like it is. Okay, so I'm the betrayer. What do I do when my wife has both feet firmly planted in the pink box? I struggle to not join her there. Oh, that's great
Okay,
question.
the pink box is the bottom box, right?
The peach
Oh,
box.
the
It's the
pink box, the top is the
hyper
hyper.
arousal.
Yeah,
We're fighting. So
I got, okay, so do you need to ask yourself, why do I struggle to join her there? That's the point here. Yeah, she's going to be there. And sometimes you're going to the blue one. But you need to determine, why am I relying? And again, it's going to be fear. It's going to be fear that you're going to feel overwhelmed. It's going to be fear that it reminds your inner child of somebody who used to yell at you this way, and you're being triggered, and you probably don't even realize it. See, those are the things I'm saying. You have to figure out what is there, because here you can't look at her in that pink box and say, oh, hostility, oh, rage. You have to look at her and say, pain. She is in pain. I need to be here for her with her pain. All right, I'm going to put on my helmet just to protect myself, but I still have to stay there with her, right? Because if you don't, what happens is you're now making it about you. Oh, this is too overwhelming. She's being totally unreasonable. Oh, I just can't take the intensity. Yes, you can. You can't. Think you can't take the intensity, and I'm not talking to you. I'm talking about to everybody here. You can't take the intensity of her rage. What about her taking the embarrassment, the shock of your infidelity? What about that? What would I tell her to do? Oh, you know what? Don't, you shouldn't, you give him such a hard time. He'll be okay. You know what? He did it. Guys do that stuff. No, it'd be crazy. We wouldn't do that. So why am I going to tell you? Oh, you know what? You just gotta, walk away. No, you have to learn how to stay on what I call the pain field. That's her pain field. Yes, both feet are in there, the whole body's in there, and you have to butt up against her, say, I'm here too, while holding on to your fear. But I'm going to stay, because you know what? It's the least you can do.
okay, so the next question. It's been 6 years since disclosure. My wife, the betrayed, is really struggling. There is still no trust. I have let her down many times when it comes to expectations around honesty and omissions. I do not always share when I am struggling because I feel like it would drive her crazy if I keep laying this on her. She is frequently triggered. I feel like I'm the only one. Oh, I feel I am the only one mostly in the green window of tolerance, and she is almost always in hyper arousal. I feel strongly that she needs and would benefit from speaking with a therapist. She absolutely refuses to do couples therapy. My question is, how can I help her? It's like the more I suggest, the more she resists.
Yeah. So you know how you can help her? You can help her by going back to what you said before.
Yeah.
And that is not that, oh, I keep letting her down with her expectations of her being honest and by omitting things. You don't share when you're struggling. So therefore, what do? You're leaving her in the dark. She's sitting here wondering, well, how come he says that it's like nothing's bothering him, but yet, no, he'll lack honesty, he'll omit. Right? You are driving her crazy. You are putting another layer on top of her. And that is why she's continuing to be triggered. You need to be consistent. If you want to help her, It's not, honey, you need to go find a therapist. Honey, you need to go read this book. Honey, you need to read, because you know what? She's digging her hand. It's 6 years. Okay. That's a long time. You shouldn't be inconsistent after 6 years. You have to be asking yourself, why is this happening? You also have to ask yourself, I mean, to be really honest, is some of this being done in a passive aggressive way? Are you so annoyed and upset by the fact that here it is so long and we haven't moved on that, you know, you kind of just throw a little dagger at her with one of these? But that's not going to get you anywhere. So again, for you, you need to go and make that amends, and you need to make, okay, what am I going to do moving forward? What is it that her expectations, again, you know what her expectations are. If you don't have them again, ask them for one test again and say, or come to her and say, look, these I believe are your expectations. This is where I'm failing you. This is what I promise moving forward I'm going to deliver. And don't put that out there unless you plan on doing it. Unless you plan on doing that, don't put it out there, because it's not. And I would say this: you think you're the one who's in that green window or tolerance most of the time? I'd say you're not maybe as in that box as much as you think you are. You may not be aware that you're in one of those other two boxes or just along the sides of them. Because to be living in this type of environment, I find it very difficult to be sitting in the heart of the, you know, homeostasis sense of peace. So again, I think for you, it has to be more along the lines of the things you're supposed to be doing in recovery. Focus on doing them well, and doing them consistently.
Thank you. Yeah, I see this as really, I'm doing the facade of I've got my stuff all together. And look how crazy my wife is. She's so triggered and she won't get help and all of those things. I like this feels like gaslighting to me of like this like she's the problem and I'm going I first thing I read just like Dr. Eddie was like I'm not being honest, I'm not meeting like there's not good recovery in any of this, and why would she be trusting that all of a sudden things are going to be better? So I really invite you to lean in. um, all of those work groups that we posted earlier could be useful for you, so and the time for some deeper work.
He may not even realize that he's being
I
that
agree. Yeah.
again, right? So if he's just looking for, oh, when to get better,
Yeah.
but you have to take a step back and evaluate all this.
Next question is a great one, and we hear this a lot. My husband insists that he does not feel. What suggestions do you have to help him recognize feeling?
He doesn't feel. Yeah, there are guys who don't feel. It's not like that you can sit there and say, okay, so here's joy, feel joy, or here's despair, feel despair. You can't do that. What you need to do is figure out why he stopped feeling. Wonderful movie. I just saw it for the first time. It was back in like 2001, called The Kid with Bruce Willis.
Oh, okay.
Watch it. Watch it and watch it with him. It is amazing. It shows you what happens when a parent is not there to help a child to deal with emotional pain and he doesn't know what to do and he takes the wrong message in. And in this case, it's the father actually delivering the wrong message. And the kid lives with this for his entire life, and that's why Bruce Willis becomes this narcissist that he becomes. I would do that. The other movies to watch Inside Out and Inside Out 2, the animated movies. Those are amazing. Not only just funny, but they talk about the emotions. They show you about emotions, and then have a dialogue with him afterward about it. But he really has to figure out what is going on. that he cut it off. At one point, I cut mine off, and then I found out why I did it, when I did it, and that was got me back to the place where it's like, oh, I'm not going into that hypo box anymore.
So is this the same thought as slowing everything down? And I'm not 100% sure which, maybe it's
I
the
think
whole
I think you're
process.
talking
So,
about the whole process.
okay,
Sure,
okay.
sure. You need to be able to slow things down, as you well know, in order to keep us regulated. If I don't slow down and realize I'm starting to slip out, like I'm dropping down into hypo, or I'm rising up into hyper, that's where I'm gonna wind up. If I slow down and again ask the question, what is my mind, my body, and my soul telling me? Then I can keep myself there. So yeah, that's a really good point.
Well, and if the watchword is awareness, like you can slow, if you slow things down, you can actually have awareness.
Right. It is awareness. Awareness is the key. And I was actually at a client session earlier today, and that I was, awareness. This is the word, awareness. If you're not aware, it's not going to happen.
This trade spouse here, we haven't yet had full disclosure, and I'm constantly in my head imagining all the worst things that are likely to come out that I don't know. I'm struggling with emotional regulation, and I bounce between hypo and hyper with, within a couple of hours. And my emotional dysregulation causes his dysregulation, and he slips, not relapses, but yellow circle stuff, in which I spin more and more, and the cycle continues.
Right, of course, if he's going to do that, but see, he's not, he has to wind up staying. I expect you to move. Okay. Now, you could use some of these things that are on this sheet also to help you to regulate. All right. You should be looking for self-care also so that you can get out of your head. All right. Again, you're worried so much about what is to come. What is that doing for you? It's not going to make it any better if it does. And in most cases, it's usually not to the extent that you think it is. Now, I probably should not have just said that. Now that I just think about it for a moment, because it could be, and I'm sorry for that, but you can't do it. You can do whatever you want. But to sit and worry about all of that serves you no purpose. Now, I know by saying that, it's not going to get you to stop worrying. However, you can find time to take a break, to do something that might help you to back away from somebody. Like go watch that movie Inside Out or Inside Out 2. Watch a comedy. Do something. Go out with a couple friends. Do something to get your mind away from it. All right? Because yes, while this is devastating, I am not, what I'm about to say right now, take it in no way, shape, or form that I'm minimizing the anguish that any woman goes through or any man goes through who's been betrayed. However, this is just one segment of a life, one segment of life. There are so many wonderful things that are still out there about life. And you could tap into some of those while you're dealing with this pain. And I strongly encourage you to do that, to give yourself a break. Because at one point, if you do what you need to do, you will heal from all of this. But don't waste years. Don't waste years. Just like, you know what, this is something I have to do. Just like if you had an illness, let's say you had a major illness. Okay, I got that illness. Those people who are just going to focus on that major illness 24/7, they're less likely to heal than someone who says, you know what, I'm taking breaks to go and focus on me. And even when you go take the break, it might be somewhat difficult at times. You may break down and whatever. Okay, that's fine. Then you go back to it. But this is just one segment of your life. Please try to remember that.
And what has happened has already happened. Your playing it through in your head isn't going to make that unhappen. I quote you all the time, and you quoting Dr. Gabor Mate. I
Right,
quote that one all the time. It's already happened. That's done. So
right.
you've got the here and now, and how do you move forward? And yeah, I for partners, I encourage you fight for your regulation. You know, the more regulated you stay, you have more strength than you know, and it's happened. You're going to stay. You're going to go. You're going to do whatever. You will survive this and learn to heal and I hope thrive, regardless of what has already happened.
And I'm glad that Tammy brought up that what Dr. Mate said and to expand on it again. Right. What happened is not going to change.
Mhm,
That is always going to be there.
mhm.
But what you're making it to be, that that you need to change. That you can change. Just like the first person who said, "Oh, my wife, she's blaming herself." See, if what she's making that event to be is about her, and oh, if I would have just been a better wife, and maybe a better lover, if I would have just looked different, whatever. No, no, no. He would have done it with anyone because you know what? He was set up to fail because he did not get what he wanted. He was set up to fail, and she didn't have a chance. She didn't have a chance, unfortunately. It's really sad. That's the way it plays out. But again, there's other aspects of life. Find them.
Yeah, you can move forward on a different path. Okay, I assume this is the addict partner. I have recently been diagnosed with ADHD. Is that a contributing factor
Oh,
to my
yeah. Oh,
dysregulation?
absolutely, absolutely. If we're not going to be able to focus, okay, it is definitely going to impact us because you're not then aware as you're starting to shift into one of those boxes that we don't want to be in. And that's why it's important, whatever treatment that you're taking, that you adhere to that, including diet and exercise and things like that. So that, and therefore you even have to be more alert, more aware as time goes on.
So I have mild ADHD, but I use calendar reminders for everything. And
Oh,
the doing the I need to
post
take
note.
a yeah, exactly. I got post notes everywhere too, but the to do the time out self-care, you
Yeah.
can throw little reminders in your phone to alert you, and then you'll remember. Because and then one more thing, we have Candace Christensen, who is so helpful with neurodivergence, which includes ADHD and sex addiction. She is joining us for another edition yet this month in June. I think it's the third Wednesday, so check that out. It's on our calendar, but she will be here to talk about those aspects and healing from sex addiction and betrayal trauma. So and she'll be here to answer your questions too. Okay, my spouse is opening his business to start. It takes a lot of work, effort, energy, money, organizing, calling, et cetera, et cetera. For me, as a betrayed, it's all too overwhelming. But when I see him struggle, I feel bad for him. I do admire that he wants to work and own his own business, but he does not speak the language well. So at times I do help, even though I don't feel like I want to. What can you say, please? I'm dealing with my own stuff too. And she adds, by the way, before the trauma, I would have easily helped him without the effort and pleasure. Now, not so much.
Yeah. So again, if part of that, again, let's figure out. It's not like I want you to dive in and do that. I mean, I want you to do it if you feel like you want to do it. But again, is part of it, is that part of you punishing him? I don't know. That wouldn't be the right reason to do it. If part of it is I just can't be with him that much, I could understand that. Um, no, I think you pick and choose your spots where you help him. Again, he wanted to start the business. He's the one who has to put in the effort. He has to put in, and I hope it's not going against what he needs to do for his recovery. I hope he's still doing that work too. Right? So therefore, I don't wouldn't feel enslaved to help him. Pick and choose when you're in that mindset or that mood where you could. Fine. You can't, you know. And when you say you do not speak the language well, I assume maybe we're talking about English. Is that what we're talking about? Well, you know what? There's automatic translators that we now have, okay, that you can talk to people or help him. He can help figure it out. So I would look for other ways for him to be able to figure out how to overcome some of those problems he's dealing with.
Yeah, and if the business is going to be beneficial for the two of you, that may be a factor. If it's one of those where, this is just another distraction, and now all of the energy is being put into this, so that's going to be, I think, some real soul searching for you of how you want to show up for this or not. What feels good, what feels authentic for
Right,
you. Yeah.
right.
Okay, so this one goes back to the person that doesn't have feelings. His mother is in very poor health, and I asked him how he was feeling about that. He said, "You don't understand. I don't have feelings." This
What I
makes me
Go ahead.
wonder. No, I was gonna say, this makes me wonder if there's some neurodivergence on this, or what are your
Well,
thoughts?
alexithymia, I mean, that's what you could be dealing with too. Again, that's all you just doesn't have any of those emotions. What I would do is follow up with a question. Okay, so what are your thoughts?
Oh, good one.
Right? What are you thinking about her illness? How do you think it's going to impact you overall? That's where I would go down those roads. Don't put the word feeling or emotions in.
Huh.
That's
So
who.
you like, well, let's have a conversation about your thoughts because there may be a clue to some feelings or not. Okay.
Exactly, exactly.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Sometimes we got to go around to get where we want to go.
Yeah, well, especially if I don't have feelings, I don't have feelings. If that's the constant response, I
Right.
can understand that. Okay, where can I get the written answer to the question you just answered? That was not her fault because her looks aren't good enough. It's not. This is going to be posted in a little later today on our website, so you can check it out on the website. It's on
You
YouTube. So,
you would find that I'm pretty sure that in my book, Going Deeper, I think I put something
do
in
you put it
about
in there?
that.
Okay.
I think it's in there. I think you might find it in other books also. Um,
It's probably in codependence, but like honestly,
so
to
yeah, I'll bet you it's in
yes,
codependence. I guarantee you it's there.
we say this all the time on webinars, so you can check out. I think Dr. Rob just said it again on Monday night. So so almost any of them could have that. So
Right.
I'm looking for so I'll ask not a question but a comment. Addict here. My therapist recently suggested creating a fire drill plan and practicing it off and select 3 or so actions that I can take when I feel a crisis approaching. Key is practice, and while I lean into this crisis, thank you both for the work you do. So
Yeah, that's wonderful. Wonderful. Love it.
Debbie McCrae talks about having an emergency kit, and it's like I have emergency medical kits in my cars and different places, and I think of that often with like if I want to have the tools to use. I'm in the grocery store, I get triggered. I want to do something I can do in the grocery store. So okay, so here's one.
I
When
know.
is Dr. Eddie offering a seminar based on the new book to help the betrayed partners?
All right, so we're gonna get personal right now. I only have a few minutes, but we're gonna get personal. As you know, my wife Terry and I both wrote this book. Um, Terry is wonderful when she does this stuff. Terry doesn't like to do this stuff. Okay, Terry feels very uncomfortable doing this stuff, so Terry doesn't do this stuff. And in order to do that type of seminar, it would really be very helpful for me to have her there with me. So I am working on that. I'm really pushing her to be part of this, that we can do it, because you're not the only one, Robin. I've been having a lot of people who have been asking about this. So we plan on doing one. It's just it's in the works.
And I've bugged him about it too. I bugged them, and I was like, I'll even shadow it so I can help. Yeah. So I no, I love that book. So okay. Oh, we got 2 minutes. Same betrayed partner who's worrying about full disclosure. I don't know if I should stay or go because I don't know what he did. Ah,
Oh yeah, of course. So therefore, you know what? I'm not worried about staying and going right now.
yeah, yeah.
You know what? That's not the don't focus on the marriage. And that's not coming from me. That is coming from some of the most premier women in the field who work with betrayal trauma. Don't focus on the marriage right now. Focus on you. Once you get the information, then you have to focus on the answer of, okay, can I, if I can stay with him or I go with him, you almost have to be in the mindset of, you know what, the marriage doesn't matter. If do I want to have a relationship with this man? That's what has to happen. You have to let the marriage go, and then, and I don't mean get divorced, but just that's not where my focus is on the relationship. It's on the healing. You're healing, his healing, you're healing together. And you're right. Sometimes it is. I can't stay.
And perhaps putting that, I often say for partners, putting the relationship in safe harbor, which just means I'm going to take my brain energy and not have to worry about, I'm taking that decision off the table. Hopefully you've got a date for the formal therapeutic disclosure so that you can go, that I have enough to do taking care of me. And when that date comes, I will learn more and then I can make an informed decision after
Yeah.
that. So
We'll be back on July 31st, and then we'll be back again on August 7th. You get me twice in 8 days. God bless.
I'm thrilled. It's awesome. Thanks, everyone. Bye. Thanks, Dr.
Bye.
Eddie.